Head coach Todd Judge joining us here in studio to talk about their young season so far and expectations for this new year, and a little bit more about his background too, as he's new to the Aggie scene. So, Coach, thanks for coming down and spending time with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about it. When I heard about it last week, I was trying to come in last week and meet with you guys. We just had a pretty busy week to get ready to go travel, so I'm really excited to be in here and be a little bit more a part of the community. I've been so busy just putting the team together and practices and workouts that I haven't had as much time as I'd like to get out and try and do more of this type of thing. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, so I want to get to that, but first let's, getting to the young season, putting the team together. But just tell us a little about, you becoming the head coach of the Aggies and how all that went about.
So the last 2 years, I coached baseball for 10 years, club in high school. Then I coached club softball for 15 years, and then ran my own businesses. I had 7 gyms over a 30-year time period and coached on the side. So my life's been a little bit backwards compared to most coaches. They start off as coaches, as grad assistants, and move into the coaching world. Mine was a little bit of the opposite. I was in the business world and then went into coaching. The last 2 years I was at BYU, and when the season ended, I kind of have a mentor in the game, Mike Candrea, who was at U of A, University of Arizona. I think he's got 8 national titles. I said, I really got into this to want to be a head coach, and he said to go out there and make sure and look at what options are out there every single year. I love my experience at BYU. We won 42 games the first year I was there and 35 the second. I coached third base in those games, and I ran the team defense. So I felt like the 30 years of coaching and the 3,000-plus games I had coached, I felt ready to try and move on to being a head coach. So I kind of went out there and looked at what jobs were available and interviewed with a bunch of different universities. And of all the places, my wife said it, and my daughters who listened to the interview, the one that felt the most comfortable, and I was hoping I would get the job, was Utah State. Amy Crosby and Jerry Bove, they both interviewed me, and I just right away in the interview process felt really comfortable with them, was hopeful that I'd get the job. So that's kind of how the job transpired. I got it right after our season ended. It's about 2 weeks after our season ended. In the summertime around June 1st, they hired me.
I guess that journey and that path here, which is really definitely non-traditional for coaches, as you've detailed. How does that, though, still give you kind of a unique relationship and aspect as to what the players are going through and their path to get to your team?
I had 2 daughters that played, so I get to hear how they, got to, a lot of college coaches, kids did not play club or college ball, and so a lot of times they say today's kids. Well, today's kids, let me tell you, work way harder than we ever did, and that's not really what people think, but these kids are playing 150 games a year. They have strength coaches, stretch coaches, pitching coaches. They work hard, and I think a lot of times we don't really know what they went through to get to this point. So my thing's always been about given the experience that if you were willing to make these sacrifices as a youth player and miss every birthday and wedding and you name it, these kids have to miss to play club ball. I hope they get to college and get to have the experience that they felt like the sacrifice was worth it. So being able to understand a little bit what they're going through by having 2 daughters that played, and also understanding, I felt like I went back in the future and forward in the future and back again numerous times. I coached Little League baseball, then club baseball, then high school baseball. Then I coached a little bit of junior college baseball. Then I went back, had 2 daughters. They said, all you ever do is spend all your time with everybody else's kids and never us. It's probably the worst decision they ever made because because after that they had to deal with Coach Todd or Coach Dad for the next 10 years. But I basically left baseball to go coach those 2 in softball. Said it would be like a little fun rec team. 6 years later, I think I have 10 teams within my organization. We're ranked as one of the top 5 teams club in the country. I put 144 kids in Division I, 11 All-Americans, had kids that played in the College World Series, national champs, and everyone kept saying, you're an exercise physiologist and you have a great gym business, but your passion is coaching. My wife is the one that probably pushed me the most to kind of leave the gym world and say, you know what, you need to get into coaching. You're good at this. You need to do it. And so I sold my business. I sold my house, sold my car, basically moved to Provo, got an apartment, 5 minutes from campus, and just basically said, I'm all in. I'm going to do this. So It's been a little different journey, obviously, than most college coaches go the grad assistant route and then assistant route and then into the head coaching position. But I think being in that so many years before that and learning all those things, I felt like when I finally did get the job, I was ready for it because I had coached for so many years of different levels.
So how different is it coaching? You know, obviously it's so many different levels: baseball, softball. How different has it been for you now coaching collegiate baseball or collegiate softball as opposed to what you've done before?
So club, which is very intense and it's about development and getting kids scholarships. When you lose in club ball, nobody knows about it except for the coaches that are in it. When you lose in softball, everybody knows about it. Every game feels like it's 10 games or 20 games in the high school or club level. Every at-bat, every run, every loss feels much more painful for me than it ever felt at the other levels of coaching. So I think the pressure to win and be successful is definitely much stronger than it ever was at those levels.
We've seen some pretty good softball play at the high school level around here. I know Bear River has sent multiple players to Division I. I think a couple other schools in Cache Valley have also sent players to that level. Just as you've been in Utah and kind of seen through BYU and some of these other things, like how would you assess kind of the state of softball in the area?
Well, I think it's good, and I think that was the one thing I said is when I first got the job is I want to try and get the best player in the Valley every single year. I tried. She decided to go to Texas, so I tried. I was a little late to the game, getting the job in June, and she'd already been in the recruiting process with other schools. But when I got here in June and was able to finally make contact with somebody September 1 on that. I think going to camps and being recruited by other schools, I was a little late to that game, but had a good run at trying to get the local players that I can try and get. I went after some kids from the Salt Lake City Community College. They do a really good job junior college-wise. We have a player on our team from there that's done a great job for us. But my goal every single year, and I've said it, is I want to get the best player out of this area first every single time because I think you have to start there. And then you can work yourself down to the junior colleges and into the Salt Lake area and into the club teams down there. But I feel like if I'm going to build a program, I need the the state or the city to get behind it and not have like I have right now, which is 15 kids from the California area and 6 or so from the Arizona area, not a lot of kids from the Utah area, because a lot of fans are going to want to come out and watch and be more supportive when you're trying to take some of the local kids. And there's definitely good players in this state. We had a bunch of them at BYU, and that's my responsibility to get out there and make sure on the recruiting process that I'm looking and turning over all those stones and rocks. And I've started that already with starting to meet some of those club coaches and the local high school coaches here.
So is it difficult to get a community behind the team here where, like, you're not going to play a home game until, like, halfway, three-quarters through the season? Can it be tricky where, a lot of the people following you kind of have to follow from afar and then wait until the team finally shows up in Logan to play in March?
I think the biggest thing is if you win, they'll come. And I think I've known that from the beginning. I think if we have a mediocre year and play okay, then we'll get the parents and a few students to come out. But if you start winning and start creating a little bit of a buzz and start to knock off some of these teams, and I have used the example because I've gone to every single sporting event since I've been here. I don't think I've missed very many of all the different teams unless I'm out of town. I've watched what Rob did volleyball-wise. I watched Manny's office is right next to me. I've watched what he's done soccer-wise. Those were teams that didn't have great programs in the past, and now they're, and you can't get into a volleyball game. The soccer games were packed this year. I've gone to every single basketball game. Their first one I went to had probably about 4,500 fans, and now it's sold out every single night because we're pretty good.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching them. So I think the thing is you're never going to get that kind of fan base probably for softball. It's a little bit smaller venue, but I think we can create a buzz where if we start to win and create something to do here in the spring when there's not a lot to do here in the spring. A lot of the sports are, dormant at that point and they're in their spring drills. If we start to win at that point and it gives people an opportunity to come out and watch us, I think they'll like the brand of ball we play. I'm very tough, hard-nosed coach, and definitely try and will my team every single game to victory. And I think if the fans start to come out and watch, they'll say, this is a team that I can get behind because these kids play really, really hard.
Again, we're talking to Todd Judge. He's the head coach for Utah State softball. And let's talk a little bit about your roster and your team. Mm-hmm. First, I guess we need to recognize Ariel Fafita, named the Student Athlete of the Week this week for her contributions and how she helped you guys this last week. And so let's highlight just who the leaders of your team. Who's standing out so far for you guys?
She came in today. We were in the office, had a lot to do today when you get back from a trip. And I just told her I was really tough on her in the fall. I knew what her potential was. I didn't think she played to her potential in the way I watched her when I first hit ground balls to her and watched her in the fall and play. And I said, you're a player that has the ability to be an all-conference player, but you've got to buy into the system and the way in which we field ground balls and the way in which we hit and the way in which you lead at the shortstop position. I pulled her from many drills and put somebody else in there numerous times and didn't start her in actually game one of the entire season just due to the fact that I felt like she wasn't leading the way I wanted her to. And I just told her how proud of her I was today because I told her, I said, now you kind of understand the process of what we were trying to get you to become because look at you now. I mean, you're the word our assistant uses. She's just a dog out there. I mean, she played unbelievable defense this weekend, hit unbelievably before stole bases. The biggest thing is just her effort and her leadership. She's becoming one of those leaders. Our pitching staff, which everyone told me when I got here was going to be from when I had checked into other teams and coaches I know would be the weakness of our team. It has not been our weakness. If anything, it's been the strength of the team. We have 7 pitchers. They have done an unbelievable job of buying into the concept that I try and teach. I was a catcher myself, so I definitely feel like I don't do a great job of being their pitching coach. We have a pitching coach, and she does a great job with them. But I definitely feel like I do a good job of calling the game. And after being a catcher, teaching them what we're trying to do, they've done a great job of buying into that. So our pitchers have really been the leaders on our team. And so a lot of the leaders on the other end are younger, sophomore and freshman, but they've done a great job also. But I would say Jessica Stewart, who's a senior, has definitely been our leader of our team. She does a great job of every part from the uniforms to the practices to when we get on and off the bus to getting kids fired up to keeping them accountable. She's been our kind of senior leader, so we're really proud of her.
So you talk about these players buying in, but I guess what's the process been like for you since you got here of getting this, putting this whole team together? Because you had, some players leave. You didn't have to build this team from the ground up because you had some returners. But what was this process of putting the team together, as a first-year head coach?
So we had 4 freshmen coming in, 6 transfers, 6 from the transfer portal we had come in, and then 4 freshmen. So it was 10 new players, 13 returners. Getting them to buy into my concept was not, it didn't happen overnight. It definitely took time. My whole thing is when we step on the field, there's no excuse. You go 100%. You gave me, it's some of the things you hear from other coaches, but we definitely hold them accountable to that. But when we step off the field, the big thing for me is I want to have as much fun as any other coach. We do a lot of team bonding activities, a lot of things we do as a team because my 2 daughters basically said to me is, Dad, you remember every win, and you definitely remember every loss. But Dad, we hardly remember any of them, but we remember every team party you ever had. So, making sure that we do a lot of team bonding things, from the pumpkin carving to we did a Valentine's mailboxes on the road this week to, we did a tailgate for every football game. Trying to build that trust that we're there for them more than just a coach, but as a mentor for them. And we had a big thing that we did. I've done this since they were little kids. Since my first team almost I ever coached is, I say there's 3 kinds of players in the world. There's marshmallows, and this has nothing to do with their physical makeup. This has to do with the way in which they carry themselves on the field. There's jelly beans, and then there's rocks. The goal for our team is was for all of them to become a rock, and they had to earn that shirt and become a rock this year. The marshmallow is kind of soft on the outside, soft on the inside, so kind of just carries himself as kind of a woe is me and things are going bad. And the jelly bean has a really tough exterior, but when things get tough, they're still soft when the game kind of gets tough for them. And that's a lot of players in today's world. And the rock is the person that's got the tough exterior. They're mentally tough inside, and when things get tough, they can deal with that. So we play back on that a lot, of getting them to earn that. Everybody earned it by right around Thanksgiving. And a lot of it is subjective and a lot of it's measurable. We made sure everything mattered. We went to every single weight training. Most coaches don't. We went to every single conditioning. Most coaches don't. We wanted to make sure that every rep mattered, every touch on the line mattered, every set mattered. You couldn't become a rock unless you took care of your grades academically. So we had players who had earned everything on the field but didn't earn it academically until right around November. The practices mattered, that when you come to practice every day, that you compete in practice. You don't try and just complete practice but compete in it. That you're always having the competition, that you're mentally tough on the field, but we also were very cognizant of today's mental health, and we're constantly checking in with our players. And then the last thing was obviously the academic portion. So those 5 phases kind of led into that, and we held them accountable to those things. And once they earned that, that's how we started to build team. But I think none of that, all that really mattered to build it until we got into the fire this weekend, and we got challenged a little bit, and we had to fall back on that, because the normal instinct is to fall back to what's always been comfortable, and I had to continue to will them out of that. And we lost 3 one-run games this weekend. That easily could have gone the other way. We went 5-4 in 9 games. I keep saying, my wife says not to think it this way, but we could easily be 8-1 right now. It was just that close. We're talking about 1 strike, 1 pop-up, 1 single to be an 8-1. We left 10 and 9 and 8 runners on base in those games. So 1 more single in each game, and you're coming back 8-1, and you're there. So we're close. They've bought in. I'm really, really proud of the girls of what they've done and what they've bought into. But it's gonna take a little bit more time than I had hoped. I thought I could wave the magic wand and we'd be there right away. But it's definitely taken a little bit more time than I thought. But we'll get there.
It's kind of add pressure that you talk about with Manny and Rob, and
Absolutely.
especially Danny. I feel like he's giving coaches a bad name. It's like, I can do this in one season, and everyone else seems to have to take multiple seasons.
No, I think I definitely feel that, and I think you'd be lying not to. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's good to show what you can do. I use the basketball team as an example all the time. The first 4 or 5 games I went to, I said, "God, I love this team. They play so hard." You know what I mean? I just love the way they play. So that's something that you can win a lot of games in college softball by being the grittier team. Everybody is somewhat equal at some level, but the teams that are really gritty and really tough and can deal with the rigors of a long season are the ones that can come out on top. So we're playing really good ball right now, but I definitely think we're not anywhere close to where we'll be when we start conference play.
Again, we're talking to Todd Judge. Excuse me, don't know where Budge came from. Todd Judge.
You said Budge earlier, and I wasn't sure whether
Did I
wanted to
really?
correct you.
Oh man, correct me. Yeah, Todd Judge, head coach for Utah State softball. So you've had a couple of tournaments, I guess we'll call them. You've been in California. Your next round of games are coming up in Southern Utah.
Yep.
Just with the at the Utah Tech Classic. When you look at the teams that you play against in these tournaments, how much do you have a say in who in which tournaments you want to participate in, with the type of teams that'll be there, to kind of test your team to see what they're all about, or just to kind of ease into the schedule, if you will, if you're not quite sure what you have on your roster?
My schedule was set already for me pretty much from last year. My schedule I'm setting for 2025 is pretty much done right now. So the existing coach that was here before, Steve, who did a great job here and is a friend of mine, had set the schedule already before I got here. So a lot of it was predetermined. Nothing against his schedule, but I would have played different. I think you go play the best teams and take your knocks, because at the end of the day, last year Boise State had an unbelievable season. I played against them. We were at BYU. I thought they were awesome. They lost the conference championship. They were 38 and 20-something, high RPI, and didn't make the tournament. because San Diego State won the tournament. So at the end of the day, you're probably looking at one team in the Mountain West going to the tournament every year in softball, unless you can get a high enough RPI, which is tough to do because you're going to have to win a lot of games away from home. So you better challenge yourself outside of the season to be able to go win 4 games in the tournament. It's really is what it comes down. You got to make of the top 6. You've got to get in out of the 9 teams. You got to be one of the top 6, and then you got to win 4 games in 3 days, and you can go to the tournament. So if you're prepared for that because you've played really tough teams, then those games should look easier to you. So next year we open up against A&M, and then we'll go to CBU again. We're going to go to Utah Tech because it's always a good one to drive to. But then next year we'll go to Arizona, ASU, and GCU. So we definitely have increased our schedule for next year. A lot of our midweeks, when I got the job, everybody's midweeks had been taken up, and so the only way people would play me in a midweek was for me to go to them. So it was either I didn't play those games or we had to travel. So our schedule is going to be tough. I mean, we are going to travel probably as much or more than anybody in the country, but I kept telling them I'm not going to make any excuses by it. This is what it is, and we'll go out there and get it done. So we'll play Utah this year. We'll play BYU. We'll play UVU. So we'll get those midweeks against those schools. We play Southern Utah, Idaho State, who's playing really good ball right now as midweeks. But I think trying to play those first, what they call week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, which are all those preseason tournaments, I think you challenge yourself. Maybe throw one in there that's not as challenging, but I think you got to go out there and play the best teams.
A lot of what the soccer team did, because they played and they actually took some lumps in that non-conference schedule. Then they go off and win the Mountain West tournament too.
Yep.
And then you guys are away for a long time because the weather, and it seems like it's odd to be starting a softball season in early February, but that's the schedule it is, and it puts you on the road a lot. But when are you finally home?
Middle of March. I think I haven't looked that far ahead, but I think it's March 12th. I think we open against Boise, who's very, very, very good. But, I mean, that'll be the weekend that we want to have everything moving in the right direction and have everything put in place to go out there and start to make a run at the Mountain West. I mean, I've told them there's no reason to do it unless you think you can win it. And if you're not willing to say it, then it can't happen. So, I mean, that's constantly been what we've talked about since the first practice and first meeting. When I got the job, they told me to do a Zoom call with the team. I called every single player and spent about 45 minutes with them on the phone individually. I didn't want to have a Zoom call with 30 kids and make it impersonal. It took me about a week to get through those calls, but I spent an hour with each kid on the phone of talking about what they liked, what they didn't like from the years past, and then what our goals were going to be. If we don't shoot for it and we don't say it and we can't go out and compete for it, then we won't have a chance to do it. So they have done a great job of buying into it, and I'm really proud of them for that. But I mean, it's going to take, we talk about all the time, it's going to take that rock mentality for us to go ahead and take the rigors of this first 6 or 7 weeks on the road, because when we get to the end of that, we can have 2 ways we can look at it. We can be really tired and say now we're tired going to the Mountain West play, or we've tested ourselves to be mentally tough to go in and take the rigors of what this season's going to look like. But the Mountain West plays good softball. It seems like their RPI from some of those midweek games really takes their numbers down to get into the tournament. So usually one team, maybe 2 get in.
Well, Coach, best of luck on the season. You're a couple of weeks in, and a lot more to play, and we look forward to seeing you here. And when you finally do get games here in about a month here in Cache Valley. But best of luck on the season coming up.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.